There's actually an adage that says that a fool at 40 is actually a fool forever. As you grow old in life, there are some certain things that you need to do that it is quite imperative or obligatory that if you don't put these things into place, you might not be able to accomplish your whims and caprices. And that is why you need to watch this video for me to be able to review those things that you needed to do before you are actually 40 years. Because for us to actually make it in life, we all need a game plan. When you actually have a game plan, your game plan will actually help you to prepare for the future and also to build up on what you can actually do to become successful in life. We all need a game plan. So this video is actually for everyone, for those that actually desires to be rich, to be successful, to be wealthy. Then this video is actually for you. Like I said earlier, we all need a game plan in life, because when there is no game plan, it means that you're actually not prepared for what the future holds. Before you are actually 40 years, there are some certain things that you need to do that if you actually apply these principles, I can guarantee you that at the end of the day, you are going to be rich, you are going to be successful. For us to actually become rich, even before we are 40, and also if you are above 40, you need to have a game plan. You need to lay a foundation for building wealth. And that's why I'll be mentioning some certain things that you need to do for you to actually build this wealth. Number one thing that you need to do to build wealth is that you need to define what wealth actually means to you. A lot of people actually believe that for you to be successful in life, for you to actually become wealthy, you need to save enough money. Saving money over a long period of time does not guarantee wealth, because number one, when you save money, it does not create value. When you save money, it does not generate interest. Then when you save money, that money can actually be affected by inflation. We all know that the world now, a lot of people are actually complaining because of the high level of inflation, of which Nigeria is also not an exemption. People are crying because the cost of goods and services are actually very, very high. And unfortunately, the cost of living has actually skyrocketed, thereby affecting household incomes, because household incomes is actually not increasing. And because of this, you realize that money does not actually have a value. So if you are in the category of people that are actually saving money for retirement or for the future, then you need to understand this, that saving money does not build wealth. So when you save money over a long period of time, for example, let's assume you were able to save money for a period of 10 years, and you were able to save 1 million for every year. That makes it 10 million. Now the question is, over time that you're actually putting that money into saving, that money is not generating any value. And because it is not actually generating value, you are going to discover that that 10 million is still what you're going to have at the end of the day. And you will also be surprised that over time, by the time you actually start dipping your hands into that 10 million, that 10 million, because of the high level of inflation in the country, might not take you very, very far, and it will finish. Now compare it with someone that's actually investing the money for a period of 10 years, and he was able to invest 10 million naira, and the interest accruable at the end of every financial year is actually 23% on the investment. In the next 10 years, that individual will go home with 23 million naira. So you can see there's a difference, or there's a disparity between someone that's actually saving money and someone that's actually investing their money. They are never the same thing. So you need to save up enough assets that can pay you enough when you actually retire in the future. So saving money and investing money, they are not the same thing. Someone that saves money does not create a value, but someone that actually invests money actually creates a value. In other words, the money is working for the individual, but for the individual that's actually saving the money is creating wealth for other people, because at the end of the day, the banks are going to lend that money to people that will pay interest on such a money. So when you save your money in the bank, it does not create any value, but rather you are creating dust in the bank. And money is actually a spirit. Money likes to work. When you put money in the bank, it is not creating value, or it is not creating assets, or it is not creating money for you. And for you to be wealthy even before you are 40 years old, you need to define what wealth actually is. That is, before you are 40, you need to start investing as opposed to saving money. You can actually invest your money in various investment portfolios. You can invest in stocks, you can invest in shares, you can invest in rental estates, you can also invest in mutual funds like ETFs, equity trust funds, or index funds, or you can actually invest in what I call the S&P 500 or Dow Jones or Nasdaq. So the choice is actually yours, and that's why if you want to start investing today, you need to meet with your portfolio investment manager that will give you professional advice on where you can actually invest your money. So the key to the future is actually investment and not saving money. Wealth is not built by savings. Wealth is actually built by investment. Now, number two things you need to understand before you are 40 years old is that you need to track your money. You need to track your money. Now, someone will ask me, what do I mean by tracking your money? Tracking your money entails that you need to have an idea of what you are actually spending and what you are actually gaining. That is, you should be able to determine your income and your expenses. Now, when you talk about your income, it is not only the money you earn at the end of the month that's actually your income. The money that's actually paid to you in form of passive incomes, or in form of multiple streams of income, or where you create what we call a passive income streamline, is also part of your income. So if you are actually an individual that you have been able to create what I call a side hustle, you are actually creating a multiple streams of income. That is, it is not only your primary job that's actually fetching you money, but other things are actually creating money for you. When you're talking about your income, you're talking about your side hustles, you're talking about your primary income, and you're also talking about other mediums through which you are actually generating money for yourself. Now, you see, we are actually in a capitalist economic system where if you are actually generating income in one single income stream, it's actually very, very dangerous, because you might find yourself in financial danger zone. And at the end of the day, you might not be able to invest money, you might not be able to actually save money in form of emergency, and you might not be able to buy or get those things that you actually needed for yourself. And that's why I always emphasize the need for people to create what I call multiple streams of income or passive income. So if you are not able to track your expenses and income, you might not be able to optimize your money. So what we're saying here is that you should be able to track how you are actually spending your money and how you are actually generating money. In other words, you should be able to write out all your expenses. Where are your expenses going? What are those things that you're actually buying? And you should also be able to write out all your incomes. What are the areas or those things that are generating money for you, and how much are you earning at the end of the day? Now, tracking your income or your money entails that you now make what I call a comparison between your income and your expenses. Now, the best guide in this regard is that you may be able, or you can actually write those things down. How much do I make? How much am I actually spending? You might need to write it down, and you might need to go over them so that you can actually be able to track where your money is actually going at the end of the day and where your money is actually coming at the end of the day. Your income should be able to exceed your expenses. That is, your income should be higher than your expenses. Your expenses should not be higher than your income. When your income is higher than your expenses, then you can be able to save and you can be able to invest. But when your expenses are higher than your income, you might not be able to save and you might not be able to invest. Now, someone will ask me, what do I mean by saving? Saving here is talking about creating a portion of your money for a period of emergency, because life actually happens. So you should be able to subtract your income from your expenses. You should be able to determine how much is going out and how much is actually coming in at the end of the day. When you do this, you can now be able to save, you can now be able to invest, and you can now be able to spend your money. And that is why I always tell people that when you actually want to do this, you should be able to divide your money into 50, 30, 20 or 40, 30, 30. 40 we go for spending, 30 we go for what I call savings, and 30 we go for what I call investment. Then number 3 things that you need to do is that you need to create what I call emergency fund. Emergency fund. You see, for you to be able to become wealthy before you are 40, you need to have what I call emergency fund. And this emergency fund is talking about savings. A lot of people make a mistake in this regard by comparing or saying that they are actually saving for the future. They are never the same thing. When you are saving money, it's not the same thing as a retirement money. Saving money is actually for a period of emergency. Now, when you talk about emergency, life is full of what of unanticipated scenarios or situations. Life actually happens. You may have an emergency on your car, you may have an emergency health situations, you may need to pay your children's school fees, you might need to do one thing or the other that you never actually planned for. You can even lose your job, your loved job, the job you actually cherish so much. You might lose that job. Now, when these situations like this happen, you might need to find yourself in a period of what we call emergency. And that's why when you actually save emergency and this life actually happens, or these things actually happen, you can be able to manage yourself for a certain period of time. Like I always tell people, you should be able to manage yourself for at least 3 to 12 months. But unfortunately, a lot of people, even when they lose their job, after 2 weeks, they are back on the street and they are hungry. And that's why you need to set aside some certain amount of money every month for emergency situations, so that when life happens, you can actually be able to cope very, very well. Then, number 4 thing that you need to do is that you need to have an investment plan before you are actually 40 years old. You see, having an investment plan will determine whether you are going to be rich or you are not going to be rich. The key to wealth creation is not only saving your money, but actually investing your